recording it differently. Did that come through?
Yeah, recording has started.
Yay! Sorted.
How's it going? Nice hat.
Thank you.
That
This
sounded
hat.
really, that sounded like I did not mean that at all.
Yeah, but you don't read it. We don't.
that?
No one likes this hat. And
You know what? I wouldn't go as far as to say I dislike it. I think it's because it just doesn't look like official merch. Like it
well,
looks like
it's
looks like
not.
car boots.
I mean, I'm showing everyone my hair now. It's not official merch. So when I got this hat, I was at Wembley and it was pouring with rain and I hadn't expected it. So I bought this and a raincoat and a scarf. Cost me like 20 quid or 30 actually. 30 quid I got completely done. It was just to protect me from the rain and then I've worn it to every match ever since. But it's hideous.
Your
Like,
superstition.
yeah.
Um,
Well, not after
well, it
yesterday.
didn't work yesterday, did it? Oh, good. What were you seeing at Wembley that time?
England to USA. The fixture last year.
Women or men?
Women. Yeah,
So I've got a bit of
you have.
a runny nose. I think it's. I've been taking my hay fever tablet. Anyway, here we are, the day after the night before. Well, it was the morning before for us, but it was the night before for the Lionesses. Unfortunately, they didn't win.
No, breaking news.
Just everyone, in case you missed it,
Hear it from Ali first.
the Lionesses did not win the World Cup. Sorry to break that to you. But they got further than I thought they would.
Oh my gosh, so we did our predictions, didn't we, on an episode we haven't released yet? And what did we both say?
We would be very surprised if England made it past the quarterfinals.
So bad. But I actually think
I stand by it. I was
yeah,
surprised.
I was shocked. The thing that I really like about this England team is that everyone, us included, doubted them, and everyone questioned how they.
Serena included.
Yeah, Serena included. Everyone questioned how they were doing things, and they were just like, "No, we're doing it our way. This is how we do things." Got themselves to the World Cup final.
Like, I didn't really question how they were doing it as such. It was more that because of the injuries were to significant players, weren't they? They weren't injuries to like fringe players.
No.
And so and also we hadn't performed well in the lead up to the tournament, and it didn't look like we would score ever.
Mm,
And I watched that game. You saw them play Australia, wasn't it?
yeah,
Before the
awful.
World Cup, and I saw them play Brazil. I think it must have been, and it was just
Oh, in
Luther
that,
Vandross.
what's that competition called again?
Don't know. It's a made up thing, isn't it?
We won it.
But yeah. So basically, based on their performance in like moving into the tournament, leading into the tournament, and those injuries to key players, I just felt like it just the stars weren't going to align this time around,
Mm,
because I do believe in tournament football is very, very different. And I don't really like, I as a coach try and avoid saying, oh, unlucky, because I think there are very, very few instances in football where you are genuinely unlucky. Most of the time, as brutal as it sounds, it's just because you were inaccurate. Like, you weren't accurate enough. That's why you hit the bar. That's why you hit the post. That's why you missed the penalty or whatever. It's not really about luck. So I know that sounds brutal, but we're talking about elite sport, like fine margins. So I can't remember where I was going with this. Nothing changes.
I
But
can't either.
basically, I just, what were we saying? Something about.
Well, you were talking about how you weren't doubting the way that they do things.
Oh, yeah. So it wasn't just, I just felt, yeah, that's it. So I felt like the stars just weren't going to align this time. And in tournament football, despite my comments about not really believing in luck normally when I coach players, I think in tournament football, you do need a little bit of magic. You do need a little bit of
Mm.
luck. And I just felt like it wasn't going to be with us this time. And somehow it was to the point where we got all the way to the final.
Yeah, and like it wasn't pretty getting to the final, was it? I mean, some bits are pretty. The Australia game was,
Yeah.
but like the Nigeria game, for example,
Yeah, like it wasn't
not pretty.
vintage. It wasn't
No.
like I didn't feel like we were building momentum like in the Euros. Felt like we were just sort of somehow getting there. Like it had moments of magic. We had that wonderful goal by Lauren James. Actually, two wonderful goals by Lauren
Mm.
James. Like there were moments of magic, but it wasn't. I didn't feel like there was a collective momentum that was carrying this squad this time around. So I think in many respects, I don't feel devastated that we didn't win it because I was quite surprised that we got to the final in the first place. And also, I just don't think we played that well yesterday. I'm heartbroken in football when I feel like my team is the better team and we've
Yeah.
been robbed. But I don't think we were. I think Spain outplayed us and they capitalized on a gap and they took their chance and they were clinical with it. And then they controlled the play for the majority of the game. Um, yeah, if Lauren Hemp hadn't hit the bar earlier on in the game, things might have been different, but she did hit the bar. So God, this is people are going to listen to this and be like, "Are you actually a fan of the Lionesses?" Or
You what? Where did you watch it, Ali?
I watched it at an amazing event. Shout out Baller FC. Um, they really brought the community spirit the whole way through this tournament. Organised amazing watch parties. So I watched it at Signature Brew, Black Horse Road. Bit of a trek for me across London, but it was more than worth it. I don't know how many people were there. There's a great photo. We should add in the photo. But it sold out. That event sold out in 2 minutes online.
Wow.
I was lucky enough to get a ticket, and they brought the party. Like even though we lost, there was still such a lovely party atmosphere. Like obviously, it would have been better if we'd have won, but it was
Mm.
still like a lovely kind of community feel. Um, And yeah, it was quite agonizing. Like as much as I didn't expect them to get to the final, once they were there, I fully wanted them to win it. So I was gutted yesterday. I also think the other reason I um bounced back from defeat relatively quickly is because I'm really used to it with Spurs. So I've had a lifetime of just being like, oh yeah, well, that's that then. Like tomorrow is a new day.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's pretty much in agreement with you though about this. Like we didn't deserve it yesterday. We didn't show up 100% and Spain with a better team. Like that's it in a nutshell, isn't it?
Mm. And it is disappointing, like when you've made it all the way to a final, you're like, oh, come on then,
Mm.
like seeing as you're here. I think that's what I was most disappointed by yesterday. It didn't look, I didn't recognize their game. I didn't recognize
Yeah.
Lionesses football. I was like, what's this? And I don't know why that was. I don't know if the occasion got to them. I feel like Lucy brought, like, that's the worst I've ever seen Lucy Bonds play ever. And I feel like she could never get over I feel like she felt responsible for the goal because she'd gone on a bit of a meandering run and then it had left a gap. But I would argue that, well, once you see your player do that, you cover her. So for me, that was not her error because it wasn't actually a bad run. The reason it fell apart is because no one else was making the movement ahead of her. So she had no outlet. And then she hesitated and then she lost possession. But if she'd have had a willing runner ahead of her, she'd have played the pass. So I feel like that's more on, I hate to say it, Jess Carter and co for not covering effectively.
I think it's on like if you play with Lucy Bronze, you know what she's gonna do.
Yeah,
So, like you say, be there for it. And like, I'm not into all the hate she's getting. Like, it's bullshit.
no,
Like, no loss is ever one player's fault, ever, ever,
no.
ever, because you can trace everything that happens back a million steps.
It's a team game.
And
We win
yeah,
together, we lose
exactly.
together. Um,
Exactly. And you can
yeah,
see she's
I agree.
heartbroken. Like, we don't need to break her heart more, people that are dishing out
Yeah,
hate.
Exactly. And the reason I brought it up is because I don't think she recovered from it. I think
Mm,
she blamed herself. So it doesn't matter what anyone else was like. I'm sure Serena and her teammates said all of that to her.
yeah.
But if you've got in your own head about it, like chances are that's going to be her only opportunity to win a World Cup. And I think she'd got in her head about it, and I feel like it got to her during the game. She didn't like park it mentally to
Mm.
deal with afterwards. I feel like it affected her for the rest of the game, which was just a real shame because she's an absolute goat.
I feel like it's just a really important lesson as well that that happens at the top end of the game. And
Yeah,
when we're coaching kids and stuff, they're not in World Cup finals, but they're on occasions that feel massive, and they're going to go through these emotions as well, and they're going to let things get to them. And I think it's we were talking yesterday about how Mary Earps was like, even though she didn't look at it with her giant tongue, she was the calmest. The calmest. I love her tongue so much. She was like the calmest person on the pitch because she's done so much work on that. And we were talking about how maybe we don't do that work with outfield players enough. Like goalkeepers focus so much on that bouncing back from error element of the game.
yeah. I think if you look at the FA full corner model, psychological corner is the one that just gets absolutely left behind in most coaching.
Mm,
And the only time I think it is really addressed is when we do position specific coaching, which obviously is what goalkeeper coaching is. And because that is a position like no other in the game, I think we're just more aware of it when we're working with goalkeepers because we know that they feel a lot of responsibility, and they will have occasions where it does, if they make a mistake, there's an immediate impact to that. Like, for example, I didn't think Kira Walsh played particularly well either. Um, and in fact, I think a lot of our players looked a bit AWOL yesterday. Like, I think apart from Earps, I don't think anyone was particularly great. Uh,
mm.
and so, yeah, it shouldn't come down to Lucy at all. And also, I don't want to get ahead of our conversation, but I rate her highly for just being like, yeah, whatever, Infantino. Like, why should I make eye contact with you? Why should I shake your hand? Like, that is her right to kind of almost silently protest in that way.
Yeah.
And I don't think people should come up. I mean, I haven't actually seen it because I try not to get involved in this stuff on social media, as in, I say my piece, but I don't get involved in other people's comments and stuff. But I heard that people were coming for Lucy Bronze about that, but like who? Because I feel like
I
most of the women's football community would absolutely have her back on that.
I think the traditional women's football community for sure. But I think, and we always knew, it's one of the incredible things about this tournament is the way that men have engaged with it and
Mm.
men have been back in the team and all of that. But I think I always had it in me a little bit where I was like, I'm waiting for something to go wrong. And then the easiest line in the world
Yeah.
is like, oh, women can't play football, or let's attack
Well,
this
they're
woman because she's a woman. Yeah. And I think that's where it's coming from. I think you're right. Most of
Absolutely.
the like OG women's football community knows what it's about and isn't doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So basically, it's just the usual idiots who
yeah.
I will continue to ignore. Um, but yeah, so I think in terms of the match itself, it was a fair result. I was really pleased that saved the penalty though,
Mm,
because I've celebrated that like it was us scoring a goal. Like at least it gave us that moment to actually celebrate something.
I know
And
it was.
also, I wanted it for her. Like I felt
Yeah.
like she was our best player, and I wanted her to have something to celebrate. Because again, to link it back to coaching, players aren't players of any age, whether you coach youth or adults, players aren't stupid, and they know that the glory positions, are supposedly where you score the goals. But that is not true. There is glory to be found all over the pitch. And I was so pleased that she had that moment. And I think actually she probably doesn't realize the impact she will have on young girls wanting to become goalkeepers, which is an area that like is quite difficult in football. I think the picture is changing now, but especially at grassroots, like it's often a position that girls don't really want to play in goal because they don't want to get hit by the ball. Um,
Mm,
and I think she will have inspired a whole generation of girls to be like, I want to be Mary Earps. I want to play in that position. I want the glory of that. And that's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah. I think the thing about the save as well was that she held on to it.
Yeah.
Like, and she just made it safe for the team. I was like, I was so sure it was going to be like the turning point and everyone
Yeah.
was going to take that energy from her. And when it wasn't, I was really disappointed. But
Yeah.
I think she has inspired a lot of girls that to go and goal, but also just like women in general. Like, I feel like we should all be a bit more Mary Earps, to be honest.
Yeah. Also, her celebration from
Yeah,
saving that penalty was iconic. The
yeah,
t-shirt has already been made. I've already ordered my t-shirt. Like, iconic. Amazing.
the best. Before we get onto serious stuff, let me tell you where I watched it. Um, it's a long story, so I won't go into it, but I ended up in the lobby of a Hilton hotel
Okay.
and
Were you multitasking?
no, well, I was eating, but that was the only other multitask. But like it was cool, but the hotel cleaner, her tag said Gina, but when we said Gina, she didn't respond, so we think it was a
Okay.
fake tag.
Maybe
When I
she was
say
covering her mate shift.
maybe, yeah. And when I say me, I mean my American friend that talks to people more than I do. She was like, it might have been her, it might have been her schedule. She was like, right, Women's World Cup final, now's the time to do the hoovering. There wasn't even carpet. She was hoovering the tiles for the whole World Cup final. So we had
Oh
to
my
like steal her up.
God.
Then she started mopping.
Gina.
So there's one point during the final where I've got my legs in the air just so Gina can get under with the mop. And I'm like trying to watch it through.
Gina G. Gina don't.
I know, I know.
Oh,
Comedy. Anyway,
what a
on to
great
this.
place to watch it. What a great memory. Where were you when England lost the World Cup final? Well, I had my legs up in the air because some woman was trying to mop.
She was so sweet. I
Real
don't
life
think
comes at you fast.
it does. It does. I don't think she realized what was going on.
Mm.
Maybe. But yeah. Anyway, do you want to talk about the Lucy Bronze Infantino stuff that you referenced?
Yeah, and all the other shit
All the
show
other
that came
shit.
out of
So
came out of
sick of
yesterday, and
this.
the fact that unfortunately the team that won it was the team that probably no one wanted to win it. As in not those players, obviously, like all respect to them, but to the players that stayed at home. Like,
That must have been so like I don't know if they watched, I don't know if they didn't watch, but knowing that they've stayed at home and knowing the reasons why they've done that, yet watching their team go and do that and knowing that they could have been there,
yeah,
that's a bit of a head fuck.
like for those individuals, I do really feel for them, but also, oh, I feel like winning the worst thing that could have happened because
Mm,
now I'm not saying Spanish, the Spanish like football federation will do this, but they have such a massive opportunity to go, oh well, like why should I listen to your cause? Because we've just gone and won the World Cup without you. So if you want to boycott or you don't want to play for your country, well,
yeah.
we've just beaten everyone else in the world. So maybe we don't need you. Like, I'm not saying they are going to do that and that is going to be their response, but it could be because they that the coach Vilda has like he's done his job, and unfortunately we know how football as a business works. It's a results based business, and if you do your job, i.e. win the tournament, it's very difficult to argue with that in terms of his methods, which is what's come under scrutiny. Because he could be like, well, some players don't like my methods, but these players have gone and followed my methods and they've won the World Cup and we're now world champions. And what? And
Mm-mm.
obviously, I don't agree with any of that. I think he's a dickhead. What was lovely about yesterday was that every time he came on the screen, everyone booed him, like proper, including me, like proper full, deep, like,
And
like,
then at the end, he was dancing by himself and the players like refused to dance with him or
yeah,
engage with
did,
him.
yeah,
I
did.
think the Federation will do that. I think the Federation will back him. What I find really interesting about it though is that like the Lionesses, the foundation of their success is the culture that Serena's built and everyone buying into that and
Yeah.
everything else is on top of that.
Mm.
With Spain, there is clearly no healthy culture built by the
Yeah.
manager to the point where no one wants to engage with him.
Yeah.
And they're clearly going through the motions to train with him or whatever. Yet they managed to win. And
I
that also
know.
pisses me off because we talk about how important culture is and it's
Yeah.
clearly rotten
But that's
there
what I
and they've
mean.
won
Like
it.
I'm less upset that England lost. What I'm most upset about is that of all the teams
Yeah.
to lose to,
I
we
want
lost
to
to
lose to
Spain.
Japan.
Yeah. I'd have taken, I mean, maybe not USA, but I'd have taken losing over any other team in that tournament than Spain. Like, not because of those players on the pitch, but because of what is going on off the pitch. And we already, like, we kind of know what the federation's going to do, don't we? Because they've already given us an indication of that following what happened to um my mind's just completely blank. Who was
Hermosa.
the Hermosa
Hermoso.
and Hermoso, sorry, and being like kissed on the fully on the mouth.
It was the mouth and it was the hand. It was the headlock in the hand.
And it was how public it was, and like what's she supposed to do? Be like, get off? Like it's really I think that's something that some men, hashtag not all men, that some men don't understand or want to appreciate is that like a lot of the time, even just outside of football, women will sort of like nervously laugh off stuff like that. It's not because we think it's funny or we're having a good time. It's because we don't want you to kill us. Like, this is the thing. Like, we feel at risk by your behavior. And yeah, killing us is the extreme, but it happens. But also, even at the other end of that scale, it still could be assault.
Mm.
It still could be public humiliation. It still could be just feeling really, really uncomfortable and horrible. And we
In
don't
her
want
case,
any of
it could
that.
be never being picked again. Like,
Yeah.
because
Like
of
if
the power imbalance there.
it just all of it is disgusting and awful. And the Federation have come out with a statement on her behalf. Like, what the? Well, she made it clear how she felt about it on her Insta stories. So, like, on her Insta live. So,
Yeah.
I don't like, I think everyone can see through that, Spain. We know that that's not actually how she feels about what happened. That's what you want the media to understand that she feels.
Mm.
Um, but it just goes to show how everything's basically being controlled. And it's just awful. Just that whole situation is just awful. And it's not just Spain. Like, we've witnessed stuff in this country, not with the Lionesses, obviously, although historically there's been issues with other managers. Um, but just in general, that power imbalance and having someone like speak on your behalf and
Yeah.
not feeling safe to be like, I don't like that, like don't do that in that moment. I think that's what was awful. She wasn't safe in that moment to challenge him on that. And
I
so
think
he just did it.
I think it's a really important point that you raised that like we might look at someone and think they're comfortable in a situation, but then they might be responding based on fear. They might be responding on what's around. Like I won't go into it, but I had an incident on the tube once, and I went through the police with it and stuff. But in the moment, I didn't respond because there were kids around, and
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to freak these kids out. And I was in danger, but I was making a snapshot decision based on what was around me, which is what she's had to do there.
Yeah.
And on the surface, it might look like, well, hang on, well, she's not pushed them away or whatever, but there are a million reasons underneath that. And people in those situations need support, and that needs to be recognized. And people need to step in. Like, you know what? If you see that, I don't know, if you see a situation, I think you're better challenging it and trying to step in and getting it wrong than
Mm,
actually just leaving it alone. Because who
yeah.
knows what you're leaving alone? But on that stage, exactly like what was she meant to do? Like
Mm,
the whole world's watching you, and he's put her in that position, and that's horrific.
yeah. Just utterly grim. And it speaks to a wider societal issue. Like a couple of men have said to me today, like, oh God, like what was he thinking? Why did he think that that was acceptable? And my answer is like misogyny,
Mm.
patriarchy, sexism. Like this is the world we live in, guys. I know you guys who think you're nice guys, and some of you are nice guys. I know you find it a really difficult mental leap because you're like, well, I'd never behave like that. And I hate to break it to you, so many of you do. So many of you do behave like that, and you don't think twice about it, and that's why it happens because you don't challenge other guys that do it either.
And look,
So,
the federation's enabling that. They're not
right.
challenging
So
any of it.
when they say to me, "Oh, why did you think he could do that?" I'm like, because he knew he'd get away with
Yeah,
it.
there's no
Who's stopping
repercussion
him?
in sight. There's nothing.
Um. So yeah, just awful. Um. And so it just adds to this whole, oh God, now they've got all the prize money. Now they've got all the prize money, and they've got all the, and like this guy, is like, well, my national team's great. Like,
Mm,
why would I get the sack for being a sex pest?
yeah. And as much as we want to believe in all the good things in football, wins and money is what drives everything.
Yeah.
You keep bringing money in, you keep winning, you can do whatever you want, is
Mm,
ultimately the picture, unfortunately.
yeah. And I think that's why that like grassroots level where it's not it's not about that. That's where all of us have to work really hard to make it as safe for everyone as
Mm.
possible because the elite end of the game is pretty grim at times. So we need to do our bit like I can't influence the Spanish Federation. I can't even influence RFA. So we need to make sure we're doing our bit at a grassroots level to kind of empower ourselves and each other and our male allies to make this game safe and respectful, not just for the players, but for all of us.
Yeah, I really hate it when people say things like, "Oh, the problem's too big. It's beyond me. Like I shouldn't even try." Like, actually, that's not true.
Yeah,
Everyone can do something, and it all actually starts with the collective little things coming
yeah,
together. So you have to figure out like what's in your sphere of influence and what
yeah,
you can actually do in the communities or the organizations you're working in, and how you can create that change from the bottom up, I
absolutely.
think.
Absolutely. Because if every single person on the planet genuinely tried to make everything that they had control over good, if every single person did that, things would be good. So you do have, it is worth making your effort, even if at times it feels futile. It's not, because the people that come into contact with you will remember you for it.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, for Spain to win it, it's just, oh, it really did feel like good versus evil yesterday. Like you say, in terms of everything that Serena's built and everything that the Spanish FA just seemed to not give a shit about.
I know. I know people will be like, "You're only saying this because you lost," but I would much rather be associated with Serena than
Oh
I
yeah,
would with. But
what a
and this
legend.
meme, it so annoys me that you haven't seen the Barbie film because I can't talk about this meme with you
But
properly.
loads of people who are listening or watching will have, so go for it.
Yes. So it's a picture of Serena and it's Barbie house. And then it's a picture of the Spanish manager and it's, oh no, what's it called? Mojo Dojo Casa House. So it's like Ken's evil house from the Barbie, the house of misogyny from the Barbie film. And
Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah,
It's,
and that is what yesterday was, and that's
yeah,
why
yeah.
like yeah. Like Chris Powell said a win for Spain yesterday was not a win for women's football. And I
What was
think
it?
that captures it really well. It's just like, it's not
But
what
then
we're about over here, y'all.
no, but then it gets so difficult because for the 20 or however many women there are in that squad, that is the absolute pinnacle of their career, and that's an
Yeah,
incredibly massive achievement, and they do deserve respect for that.
yeah,
But and none of this is their fault.
yeah.
But at the
And
same time,
I don't deny those players this victory. They absolutely deserved it. Um, it's just a shame about what that victory now helps to cement. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I'm concerned about. It sort of justifies a method that has left some players so devastated that they don't even want to represent their country. Like, can you imagine being that good at football that you're selected to play for your country, but feeling so broken by a system that you don't want to? Like,
Mm.
that's what's sad about it, that victory kind of almost justifies that system that those players are trying to resist.
I think it's just so brave to actually make that
Yeah,
decision, to actually sacrifice part of yourself to
yeah,
try and stand up for what's good. That's incredible.
yeah, absolutely. And it shouldn't be down to them. They shouldn't have
No,
to do that.
no.
The powers that be should recognize when players are saying something's going on here that is not okay, and they should have dealt with it. But they all just look like blokes who are playing golf together, patting each other on the back,
It's
and
just
we
that,
see it time and time again.
yeah, and it's the thing about echo chambers, and it's the thing about one type of leadership existing within a group and not being challenged. And it's a really slippery slope because sometimes those things might start out in a positive space. I don't know, I'm not saying this is the case now, but it can descend really quickly if you're not mindful
Mm,
of what's going on in those leadership groups.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying to like to coaches listening who are probably thinking,
You done yet?
Ali and Steph, a bit bleak once again. Um, like, this is the reality, but you have control over your part in the game. You are responsible for your interactions with your players and your fellow coaches and your staff. So make sure you are acting with integrity and you don't end up as a meme.
Mm, mm. If you're gonna be a meme though, a Barbie meme, come on. But I suppose the other thing about that is like it's not gonna be comfortable. It's not comfortable. So think about what you can put around you to support you when you're doing that and to
Yeah.
try and make that more comfortable and to try and make sure you have places of strength to draw on to keep doing that because it's easier to not do it, let's be honest. It's much easier to not do it.
Yeah. And also, particularly to women coaches, if you're going to pick your battle
Oh,
carefully,
oh,
as you know,
good.
we've been advised to do by some dickhead, this is a battle that is really worth fighting. Um, and again, there's part of me that we know very well that is like, yeah, but we shouldn't have to do.
Mm,
But like again, make your interactions count because those players need you, especially the girls. They need you. They need to see you. They need to see you leading. They need to see you safe so that they feel safe too. So we all together need to pick this battle and win it.
yeah. When you were talking though, I was just thinking that it's important that we come together on it, and it's important that I saw something recently, and there was a guy that I thought you've been fine with me, but I don't appreciate your behavior with this other woman. And
Mm.
then I was like, I need to challenge that, and I can't just be like, oh, you treat me fine, so whatever. Like I'm on your side, other woman. Like let's go. And I think an awareness. You can probably put this in better words than I. If you could summarize what I'm saying, Ali,
Okay.
once I've done, that would be great. But just yeah, just doing it as a team, I think.
Yeah.
And not taking everything on face value, even though that's shit, because we would love to do that, and
Yeah.
the world would be a nicer place.
Yeah. And I think like we said, didn't we, when we set up this pod, that it was about community and it was about creating a community and a safe space for women in particular to feel like they weren't alone because there's so many of us. Also, really lovely note, perhaps to end on, although I don't mind. You know me, I can rant about, not rant, I can speak passionately about this stuff all day.
You can speak passionately about anything.
Yeah. Shout out. I think it was Anna Kessel that said that. Um, I think it was during lockdown. I watched her do there were loads of webinars and stuff, and she said, I don't. When women say to me, "Oh, I'm ranting about this and I'm ranting about that," I'm not ranting. I'm speaking passionately. Love it. But one of the really lovely things that came out of that sense of community yesterday when I was watching that England game at the Baller FC event was that there was a woman and her partner sitting next to me, and she 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 loved football. I don't know if she'd really played much of it or not, but I just sort of said to her, "Oh, I said that I was a football coach, but I was taking a break at the moment," and I was like, um, one of the things I'm doing now is trying to, identify and enable other women to become coaches at grassroots level. And when I turned 40 in December, I really did take stock and think about like, if I'm not going to coach anymore, what role am I still playing in this game? And this is the one I've decided to take up at the moment. And she was like, oh, that's so good to hear because I've just turned 38. And I was like, is it too late for me to become a football coach? And I was like, no, it is never too late. And I just think this is the beauty of what the Lionesses have built. It's not just about encouraging 7-year-old girls. They have genuinely inspired a nation, not just one generation, but the whole nation. And Serena Wiegman, like, I just I just think she's brilliant, and I don't think she probably recognizes how many women she has inspired to become football coaches. Not because we think we're going to get the chance to manage the Lionesses one day, but just because we're like a lot of what she says in her press conferences isn't really about football as such. It's about people, and I think it's really important for women to see another woman at the top end of the game who has been successful multiple times, not just a one-off win, but multiple times, talk about football in a way that is relatable.
Yeah.
Because then all those women are like, oh yeah, I've said and thought things like that as well. So
Mm.
maybe I could be a football coach. And yes, women, you absolutely can.
You can. And for those that are, I think like don't underestimate. You might never see it, but what you're doing is having an impact. Or what you're doing could be inspiring someone or could cause someone to think differently about stuff. I also wanted to say on the community thing, I went to the first ever all-female grassroots football coaches conference. That was good. Last week. Shout out to Sue Smith for organising it. But I spoke to quite a few people that said they listened to the pod, and also we've had quite a few messages just on different things. And like, it's so cool to hear. I was gonna say all the positivity, but we'll take constructive criticism as well, of course. But it's so cool to hear that people are listening to it, they're responding to it, they have thoughts on it, and like genuinely we thought we might just do this and it would just be us like listen to it back like oh my
Listening
god it
back,
was
going,
so good. So the fact that even one other person's listened to it is like amazing, and we're just really really grateful and really appreciative that people have taken the time to listen to it and taken the time to come and tell us what they thought of it. Like that really means a lot, so just a big thank you for that to people that have
yeah,
reached out and listened.
absolutely. And tell a friend.
Yeah.
Like, if you've listened to
Yeah.
it, tell a
Yeah.
friend. Because like this is the thing is that I am grateful. Like people taking their time. Like time's
Mm.
precious.
And we go on. We know
And we
it.
go on as we've demonstrated here. But the fact that people are deciding to use that hour of their time to listen to us, I am grateful to that. But also, there's part of me that's like, yeah, because we've got some really important stuff to say, Steph. And I think we are helping not just women, because we've had comments and feedback from men as
Yeah.
well. And that for me is really like, first and foremost, I want to empower and support women, but I'm also really, really pleased that we are starting to shift the dial, even if it's just tiny, tiny change with men as well, who are thinking, oh, I didn't realize that when I did that with my female
Mm,
coach, it made her feel that way, or it might make her feel that way, or that kind of stuff. So please tell a friend, male or female, about the pod, because we want you to listen to it and learn from it. But also, we want to learn from it as well. So, the more people that listen to it, the more feedback we can get, and the more we can develop our understanding as well. Because we don't know it all. We're just chatting about the things we think we know, but we don't
yeah.
always get it right.
No, we definitely don't. And we're aware that we're learning a lot in terms of how we do it as well. So we're open to that for sure.
Yeah.
Um, do you want to give just to finish? If you had to do like one honourable mention from the
She
World
always
Cup,
springs this
what
stuff
would it
on
be?
me, people.
Yeah, I know I'd been planning it and I was like, I'm not gonna tell her because I didn't want you to overthink it.
One honourable mention, as in a player, like a player of the
Can be
tournament.
anything. It could be like a player, a moment, a team. I don't know, something that sticks out from you for you from the World Cup.
Because if I'm being really honest, the honourable mention I will give is to any women up and down the country who have organised watch parties.
Mm,
Because
that's
do not
great.
underestimate the importance of providing spaces for women to enjoy football in. And I happen to have gone to the Ball at FC events. I also went to a This Fangirl event, but there's been so many up and down the country organized by lots of different kind of fan collectives, really. And just shout out all the women that have done that, because that's the true victory. That's
Yeah.
where the real wins are, in the community that we make, and how we just show, like, you know what, we're here and we care and we feel safe in loving this game. So that's sort of my honourable mention.
It's much better than mine's gonna be. But also what was so great is that people in the UK will know that sometimes a lot of stuff is really like capital centric, so it's always taking place in London or whatever. But I'm from Newcastle and the amount of watch parties that were going on up here, something we've never seen before, as far as
Yeah,
I know. And the amount of watch parties that were going on in every city between London and Newcastle, like crazy. It's really amazing.
yeah.
Um, my my honorable
I'm sure are
mention.
you going to be like Lucy Bronze?
No, it is another player. It's not as good as yours. Um,
It will
my
be.
honorable mention is Alex Greenwood because
Oh my God, I love her so
oh,
much.
just to like, first of all, no one had her as first name on the team sheet. Everyone wanted Leah there, understandably. When Leah wasn't fit, they were like, "Is Millie going to be fit to step up and do this?" Like, no one's screaming, "I'll get Alex Greenwood in there."
Yeah,
So for her to come in, and I feel like besides Mary, she was consistently England's best player. She was
yeah,
so solid,
she
and
was.
for her to like just come in, know who she is, and do that among everything else is just I think it was just brilliant. And I think like it's good for like you'll always have star players on a team, right? You'll always have at any level, oh, I know they're gonna be the one to score the goals or they're gonna get the most cheering or whatever. Like
Yeah,
players come in and like do what you need to do and prove to people what you can do, whether people are shouting about you or not, because she carried us through that tournament, I think, in a lot of ways. And like the bandage at the end was just really good symbolism of the warrior that she is and what she's done.
absolutely. And not wanting do that thing. You know, when people are like, oh, she's the female version of this, but there were echoes of like it was Terry Butcher vibes, just without all the blood, because we can't have that in 2023. Um, Lots of listeners will not get that cultural reference because they're too young. But Google Terry Butcher. But yeah, like she was brilliant, and you're right, she was so solid, like all tournament. She was one of our best players for sure. Um, yeah, no, that's a great shout out. That's a great shout out. And
Thank you.
you're right. She embodied that spirit of what Serena has built.
Mm. Exactly. I think I'm genuinely gonna get a Greenwood shirt from this tournament. I'm gonna get the shirt that you've got with Greenwood on it. Now it'll be
Amazing.
discounted.
And on that note,
And we're done. Right.
I love the way you're just like, yeah, actually, and we are done. Let me just.
No, we are actually done.
Bye, everyone.